This is the Unlock Your Inner Creator series, and I'm your host, Noilyn Mendoza. My intention with this series is to spark conversations with passionate changemakers and creatives that bravely dared to dream of new ways and took massive action. Despite the chaos that's happening around us, a radical and liberated future, a new earth can be realized and is possible if we choose to take brave steps. So I invite you to explore with me what that could look like. Welcome, everyone. This is the 7th interview of the Unlock Your Inner Creator series. We are midway through June, believe it or not. Today also happens to be when America's first roller coaster opened up in Coney Island, Brooklyn. So I don't know about you, but I'm ready to bring in more fun. And our guest today is someone that on a career level does super fun things. So we'll get to know Ramon Gil in a little bit. But I just wanted to start and say that the intention for this interview series is to spark conversations with passionate change makers and creatives that bravely dare to dream of new ways and took action. And so the quote that I call on often in the last year is by Maxine Hong Kingston, and she says, "In a time of destruction, create something." So now we're starting to come out of this long stretch of uncertainty and unknown, and we're presented with a tremendous opportunity to think about how we want to move forward. I would say not from a place of fear, but rather I invite you from a place of possibility. There's infinite possibilities of creation when we don't know what's next. And that's because we're powerful and creative beings that have always birthed new ways. So with that, I invite you to explore with me and Ramon what that can look like. And I am so thrilled to have Ramon here because I feel like I said before, I feel he has one of the coolest and funnest jobs. So he has combined his love for comics and his love for teaching. Ramon has written and drawn over 20 comic books, comic stories, and graphic novels, penned several articles, and moderated a number of panels and workshops on this topic. He's also the organizer of Diversity Comic Con at the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City, where he teaches in the Master of Fine Arts program. In 2020, he founded the Comic Arts Workshop, a virtual school of aspiring graphic novelists born in the Philippines, schooled in California. He now resides in New York with his wife and 2 children. We sound very similar, born in the Philippines, raised in California, and having roots in New York. So welcome, Ramon. I'm so happy that you're here.
Well, thank you very much, Noilyn. I'm glad to finally be able to do something with you. We've intersected over the years, but we've never actually collaborated on anything until now.
That's going to change after this, I think.
Yes.
So, Ramon, incredible background. Have you always been a graphic novelist? Have you always done comics?
Well, actually, I came to New York in '93 to be a comic book artist. And then I did that for about a year. And then back in 1994, the industry collapsed. Mm-hmm. And I left the comic books for advertising. And I stayed in advertising for a good 20 years. And then around 2014, I saw a good friend, Amy Chu, who is pretty active in the Asian community. She switched from her day job to writing comic books. And I decided, you know what, if Amy can do it, I can do it too. So I took her out to lunch and I picked her brain. And I haven't really turned back since. I mean, I still have day jobs, but I've really just tried to do comic books. And at the same time, I've taught in the past, and I realized that I like teaching as well. So when I founded the workshop, it was a chance to combine the two. And doing the Diversity Comic Con was a chance for me to, I guess, bring more recognition or more visibility to the medium among the academics at FIT.
I love it. We're going to talk about Diversity Comic Con because I just think it's such an interesting concept. But I do want to start in the beginning, like way back, because I want to find out about the Ramon way back in the day. So when you were a kid, what did you want to be and why?
I don't think I had an actual specific ambition, but I was always drawing. And even as a kid, I was making comic books already. I was doing little strips. So I don't think I ever verbalized I want to be a comic book artist, but I knew that I enjoyed doing that. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until I think I was a teenager in high school that I said, this is what I want to do for a living.
Yeah. I love it. And you said you had a friend that inspired you to really think about pursuing that. So besides having someone to inspire you, was there other things that were happening around that time that helped catalyze you to take that leap forward and say, you know what, this has been a long time dream of mine. Let me go ahead and do it at this point in my life.
I have to say, I have to give a hand to, or I'll give it up for teachers. Because there were teachers in school who encouraged me. There were teachers in school who would enter my work in competitions without me knowing. It would be teachers who would encourage it. And I don't think I would have done any of this if it weren't for them. So, and I recently posted on Facebook, people who really like made a difference in your life. And 90% of the people said it was a teacher that did it. So I have to say, it was my teachers in junior high and in high school that really, really encouraged me to pursue art.
Yeah.
The art teachers in college were a lot tougher. Their job was to get you to work hard, so you're already there. So just make sure you work at it. So
yeah.
I would say teachers. I mean, my grandmother and my uncle were both writers, so there was always a little bit of this creative streak in our family. I know my dad, even though he was an engineer, I knew that he could draw, so he gave me a few of my first drawing lessons. And it just kept going and going from there. My mom tried to steer me to like more secure vocations like architecture or whatever, but I tried architecture and it didn't take. So I just kept going back to art. Yeah. And eventually graphic design, yeah.
So what would you say, the teachers, and also it's wonderful that you had family that really supported you, because I think in some families, when they think about arts and something in the creative field, I don't think they're necessarily like the discouragement is more because they want to make sure that you can have a livelihood, and maybe they haven't seen enough examples of it. So try to steer you into the more practical jobs. But for those that did encourage you and saw this amazing gift that you have, what would you say were the biggest insights that they gave you, whether it was a teacher or a family member? What did you learn most from them?
One time I had this project and it had to do with creating some kind of I can't remember what they're called, but a machine that would let marbles go down the path or whatever. But I got really excited about it. When it was time to show everybody's project, mine got a standing ovation from the class. And he took me aside and he said, I've been watching your work all semester long. And he said, it's been okay, but this one just blew me away. So what's the difference? Why is it that all your other work was just okay, but this one just blew you away? And I said, well, I guess this particular project was interesting to me. And he said, well, but you can't go through life just working on projects you're interested in. And I took that sort of like as a gauntlet. Like, well, let's see.
It was a challenge.
So
you don't want it to be interesting. We'll see.
So, and in a way he was right, but it just meant that I had to work harder. On the projects, obviously there were projects I was less interested in. I had to work harder for those, but it also made me work harder to create opportunities for the kind of projects I wanted to work on. And so throughout my career, there have been a lot of instances wherein I created the opportunity for myself rather than waiting for the opportunity to come down the pike. And I've been lucky that for the most part, things have worked out. They haven't always been the most profitable projects, but at least, but sometimes it would lead to other things, or it would at least, there would be other benefits aside from just monetary. So like I did a lot of volunteer work for the nonprofit community in New York City, and that would lead to other things. And I got to work with a lot of wonderful people and be part of a lot of wonderful projects that way.
Yeah. You brought up such a good point around, doing things that interest you and not always coming from a place like it's going to land you like money as a result of it, right? Looking at it from a place of what can I gain from opportunities, connections, relationships through this, or how can I grow? I think that's a really good point that you had brought up around when we're trying to create something, especially something that is so interesting to us or that speaks to our heart, is to do it from a place of love, really, of you just want to create this. And I love how you have this tenacity to just say, there's not this opportunity, so I'm going to create it. I'm not going to wait for it to come to me. So talk to me a little bit about that. So what are some things that weren't there that you said, if it's not here, I don't care, I'm going to create it? What were some of the favorite creations that you did?
Okay, one time, I used to do the Asian American Film Lab film shootout. But the first time I did it with a friend's team, and I really liked it. So I decided I would try to do it myself, create my own team. And I realized that the first time I competed, that there was a lot about filmmaking I didn't know. So I looked around to say, I wanted to take a class on filmmaking. And all the classes were too large commitments. They were either for a month or a semester or whatever. And I didn't really want to go to film school for like a month or whatever. So I called up a friend of mine who taught film, and I asked him, how much would you charge for a weekend, intensive weekend workshop? So he gave me the price. So we set a date. And then at the time, I already had my own business, a marketing business. So I just emailed everybody on my email list. I said, I'm having a workshop, a filmmaking workshop on this date. Is anybody interested? $200 each. So
you're so entrepreneurial. I love it.
All these people came. I got to learn what I wanted to know about filmmaking. And then a bunch of people on my network came, and me and the instructor made extra money. So,
genius.
And then the next 2 or 3 years, I was able to shoot my films, a little bit more better educated than before. So that's one example. Another example, my doctor had told me I need more cardio. So I was looking at, I hate treadmills and those things, but I like playing volleyball. So I looked around to see what volleyball leagues were in the area, and a lot of them were too intense. I wanted something more casual, but I couldn't find it. So luckily, there was actually a gym in my building. So I asked him how much to rent the gym once a week, and I put it on Meetup. And so at one point, we had probably around 5,000 members. We would have like a waiting list, 20 people long for every night. We got up to 3 nights a week, and it wasn't like I couldn't live off what I made from the volleyball league, but it was enough to like maybe buy groceries.
Yeah.
So, but at least I was getting my exercise, right?
Yeah.
But things like that. So those are the examples. That's what I mean by creating my own opportunities. Just,
Yeah. Ramon, this is really making me kind of expand my own thinking about when you have a desire to create something. What I heard from you was you also could be really innovative and think about how you can do it, but how do you do it in community? Because it wasn't just you learning how to film. You thought, how do I expand this? One from like a business perspective, which I think is like, you are so ingenious and keen, but also here's this opportunity I'm going to learn, and maybe people in my network would want to learn alongside with me. And the same thing with the volleyball. It's like, I was given this, direction from my doctor. Why not make it fun and also include other people? So I see that as a big theme in your work, is around community. Where have you seen that in other things that you've done?
Well, you knew that I was one of the organizers for the Heritage Festival for a long time. When I first moved to New York City, I was part of Archipelago, which was a Filipino artist collective.
Yes, I remember.
And even in college, I was involved in a lot of student groups, mostly cultural groups. But most recently, because I've been teaching at FIT for the last couple of years, and I was already doing the comic books, and a friend of mine did the first ever Jewish Comic-Con out in Brooklyn. And so my friends were saying, we should do an Asian Comic-Con. And I was thinking about it, and we actually spoke to the Asian Society about using them as a venue. But the Diversity Council is giving a workshop on how to propose grant applications for Diversity Comic Con. So I went, for the Diversity Council. So I went, and it occurred to me, well, I could do the Diversity Comic Con at FIT. And I put in an application, it got accepted. They were very excited about it. And so basically I was able to do this Comic Con, which benefited the students and was completely paid for by the school. And it was also a good way for me to, network and build a relationship with people in the industry by inviting them to participate. There's always things you can always leverage things. For years, I had already been organizing panels and guest speaking spots for a lot of people in the industry. So it's just a matter of leveraging those relationships to bring people to the Diversity Comic Con and raise the bar for it. So it wasn't just like a first time rinky-dink Comic Con. We actually had some big names from day one. So
yeah, and this idea of leveraging and thinking about, I have this idea, I don't necessarily have to keep it in this little box.
Right.
How else can we leverage it, and how can we elevate everybody, actually, whether it's the students at FIT and those that have been in the field for a while and looking at this as opportunities, again, to build community and to grow.
Right. Well, you look for things that it's always got to be a mutually beneficial situation. The people I invited, it helps them spread the word about what they're working on. When they come to the Comic Con and speak, the students get something out of it because they get to meet people in the industry. They get to show their portfolio. And aspiring creators get to show their work to the general public. So as long as you can find ways where everybody gets something out of it, you can make it happen.
Yeah, that is a really interesting point that you brought up around making sure that it's mutually beneficial for folks. Because I think some folks who are putting something out there, they're not necessarily thinking in that way. They're not thinking as, how is this experience going to benefit everybody who's in this space? Where would you say you got that orientation to think in that way in terms of the projects that you're putting forth?
I think, I've always sort of like to look at things differently. See if there's. I always like to ask, well, how can we do this better? Or how can we do this differently? I've never really been one to always just do things because it's always been done the same way. I'm not sure where I get that from. The uncle, who's a journalist, was very, I guess, unorthodox in his ways. So he always gave me a lot of life lessons when it came to that helped me later on. And I think I get that a lot from, because he was very unconventional. So I don't remember any specific lessons on leveraging. I know he had some other lessons on how to make your mark and how to build relationships and things like that.
Yeah. I think it's awesome that you had these examples in your life, and whether they verbally said it to you or you just saw through the way that they moved about in the world, I can see how it definitely has impacted how you approach the projects and the things that you do. Let's talk about what's inspiring you these days. Anything that you're curious about?
These days, I guess just the idea that I think there's this new trend in marketing. That's my background, is marketing. It's called community management. And what it is that if you're a company, you want to take the people who are really big fans of your brand, your advocates. You want them to find each other like a tribe, because then they become advocates for your brand and they become advocates for what you're doing, right? And that's what was happening. I noticed that's what was happening at the volleyball league, because I would have waiting lists that were 20 people long every night. And what it is that people felt they belonged to that community. That was their tribe, people who were really into volleyball. And I would say volleyball was half the draw. The other draw was that the friends that were there, the friends that they made that were there. I always say this, that that song from the theme song from Cheers, where everybody knows your name. Everybody's always glad you came. that's what it is. People, that's why people flock to events or to belong to clubs or belong to organizations, because they want to find their tribe. And that's what that volleyball league did for them. These were people who, you mean, they would meet up, they met for the first time at my volleyball league, but they would hang out afterwards, you know. And even for the Heritage Festival, we were a tight group of organizers, and we all became friends. And so if you take that and you apply it to like a company or a brand or a service or a product, people who love it and who can share it, because what we all are really looking for is connection. Yeah. You know, we all want to be connected with each other. We want to be connected with people who are like-hearted as us, you know, and you'll find those people. Those are the people that you want to hang out with, you want to do things with. And if you're a brand and you find those people who love your product or your service or your whatever, and you bring them together, you know, that not only creates loyalty for the brand, but it also creates loyalty for the group. And then you have a organized community around what it is that you do. Yeah. So I guess that is what has been inspiring me lately. The Comic Arts Workshop, which I founded, it's not so much a school so much as it's a community. You know, it's a membership community. People don't pay to come in to take the class. They come in to be to be a member. And when they're a member, you know, we have these twice weekly get-togethers online where everybody can just hang out and just do things together. We have a night where everybody just works together. You know, you're not working on the project together, you're working on your own project, but we're together within a virtual environment. You know, and everybody loves being there because everybody feels like these are their tribe. These are the people who are like them, people who love to tell stories through their art, you know? Yeah. So I would encourage anybody who has a business like you to create a community around what you do, because people are passionate about what you do, Noilyn. So if you can create a community, then that's it. You're set. You know, you have people who will always advocate for you, people who will take part in what you have to offer. So yeah. And you said a few things. There is so much power in group energy. Yes. Like the fact that people are coming twice a week, and literally it's to like hang out online, but do their work together. Yeah. And I've seen that because I also hold, you know, similar sessions, Pomodoro sessions. Pomodoro. Right? Like where people come together, and I hear the same response. It's, you know, this time for us working at home, and even when we're not working from home, right? Sometimes it feels so isolating to do your work. It's incredible to be in a space with people who are going through similar experiences or have the same passion as you. And what I see it as, you know, as a coach, it's like you're really being seen. And that sense of belonging, you really can't describe it to a lot of folks unless you're in that experience. And so I just think that that's awesome, that that's what you're creating. Also reminding us, you could be a business and you can also be community minded. And also to think about how sometimes it's even beyond you, right? Because the communities that you're creating, that you were saying, or this experience that you're creating with the volleyball group is even beyond you, because who would have thought that people would form these amazing friendships and they would be hanging outside of this like volleyball clinic. There are a couple of couples that got married from the group.
Oh my goodness. You're a matchmaker too. You can put that on your bio. That's incredible. So I wanted to go back and I want to talk about comic books. Sure. So what are your favorite comic books?
You know, I mean, none of them are very popular. I mean, I like Batman and Doctor Strange and Daredevil and things like that. But my favorites tend to be these comic books that are outside the general public's awareness. Comic books like Alex and Ada, which is about this guy who falls in love with his AI companion. You know, there's one called Zot about this guy who comes from another Earth that's perfect, and he comes to this Earth and he sees all the injustice and inequalities in our Earth. You know, there is, and of course, I really love the stuff that's coming out nowadays, like that Reina Tagelmeyer from Smile and Guts and things like that. Marjane Satrapi, Persepolis. You know, there are all these like it's weird because I just did my thesis on, it's called comic books versus graphic novels. And the idea is that, for decades we had these comic books which were about superheroes and sci-fi and adventure. But we're entering a new generation of comic creators who are making graphic novels, which are books, not necessarily floppy periodicals, but books that have self-contained stories, and they're not necessarily about superheroes or adventure. They're about life and about family and about relationships. And it's really graphic novels for young adults and children are booming, are the one part of the book industry that's really booming right now. And it's because all these creators and very diverse creators too are coming in and telling their stories, and they're not necessarily superhero. They're just about, like life, maybe immigrant life, or maybe it's just, your childhood or your family or whatever.
Yeah.
It's growing.
And you brought up a really good point, because this is another medium for stories, just the power of being able to tell your own narrative in this form. And I think that's where perhaps we're going to that direction, where it's not the superheroes, right? Of before, maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, you said we're talking about real life issues. And this is one way that people could articulate that.
Right. And a lot of people in education and librarians are recognizing that graphic novels are a gateway to reading for a lot of children. So a lot of librarians, for a long time, libraries would look down upon graphic novels and comic books. But then you have a whole new generation of librarians who read these things, and they're recognizing that, these are the most checked out books in our library. So why not lean into that? If the kids are reading, then let them read. So I just finished a comic book for a textbook company, and so I think it's coming out next year, which will be a graphic novel about entrepreneurship I think it's for 6th graders.
I love it. Yeah, if I had something like that in 6th grade, definitely would help me now.
So
you could be exposed to that. I think that's incredible that is kind of the movement of how we see graphic novels and comics being introduced to more people, really, and the power of it. Why do you think that comic books and graphic novels are more appealing in some ways than the traditional books, for example? What is it that draws people to this particular medium versus, like I said, versus, just regular books?
Well, I think regular books will always be there, and the readership for regular books is still a lot higher than graphic novels. But I think words or pictures by themselves are okay, but when you fuse the two together, when they interact with each other in a narrative, I think there's a good segment of the population that really takes to that more than just one or the other. I mean, I read recently that from a cognitive perspective, something like that, where you're interweaving words and pictures, are much more effective as far as remembering stories than just one or the other, than just written word or just pictures. But having the two intertwined, working together, is much better for retention, much better for understanding, for comprehension. So and it's only now that people are recognizing that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I have small children, and all their books have pictures and words. And then, like at a certain point, as you get older, right, as you go through elementary, it just becomes all words. Right. And it's like, you're kind of just tapping into how you imagine it. So I think it's really cool. And it's interesting that now we're kind of going we're mixing the two and seeing why it's so effective, because you can associate this visual with the words and integrate that a little bit into your, consciousness more.
Right. Yes. I think graphic novels definitely have advantages.
And I want to talk about that because you recently created a comic of your own personal experience of what was happening during the pandemic. For somebody who's interested in exploring doing something like that, right, where would they start? Whether it's writing or trying to think about how they can put the story together, what advice would you have?
Well, what I would do is I would, there are a lot of online resources. You just have to Google it. How do I make a comic book? How do I draw a comic book? How do I write a comic book? You'll find that There are YouTube videos and blog articles that are all over the place. And there's a bunch of schools. If you really want to take it seriously, there's schools all over the country. I mean, not everywhere, but there's one in Vermont, there's one in Florida. There's the most popular ones are probably Comic Experience, which is online. And a lot of grad school programs also have a big emphasis on graphic novels. But you can get by with just doing a search online and you'll find all these resources. And also join Facebook groups for comic book creators. And everybody, that's a little bit more, I guess, delicate because people can be brutal for when you post things, but you'll find people who are happy to help, because it's very competitive, and comic creators come in all stripes, and one of the things that I always tell people is that, and a lot of people don't get this sometimes in the comic book industry, or people who want to be comic books, is you have to be nice. Because it's a very small community. If you want to connect with people who are professionals, who have the power to publish you, the power to get you working at a company, you always have to be pleasant and nice and to talk to. But if you go online, join these Facebook groups, you'll find people who are always willing to help.
Yeah. Fantastic advice. We'll definitely be putting your contact info. I'm sure there are going to be folks who have more questions. You're somebody who I feel exudes creativity left and right. So there's some of us who are listening who may not feel as creative. So what advice would you give to someone that's desiring to bring more creativity, again, in the spirit of fun and joy and play? What would you tell them they can do, or where can they start to bring some of that more in?
I would say what you just said, play. Don't take it too seriously. Don't feel like it has to be a certain way. Don't think that it has to look a certain way. Just do it from the heart. Just do it what makes you happy, and everything will come after that. Don't worry what people say. Just try it. Go online, find tutorials, find videos that show you how to do it. And just do it for yourself, because when you're doing it for other reasons, that's when it becomes frustrating. That's when self-doubt creeps in. That's when a whole bunch of other factors just cloud the clarity of what you're trying to do. And that's something I've also had to learn. For a long time, I was worrying about the industry, and does it pay well enough? Am I making the right connections? And finally, it's just keep making the things that I like to make. Whatever happens after that is gravy or icing on the cake. You have to derive joy from the actual making of it. As long as you have that, everything else is just, it happens or it doesn't happen, doesn't matter, as long as you're enjoying yourself and you're doing something that brings you joy.
Yeah, we get so serious, right? Let's just do it from play and joy. Awesome. I also wanted to talk to you. So you had a friend that inspired you to take this leap, because you were, like you said, you were in marketing, graphic design for a while.
Yeah.
What were you thinking at that point when you just said, you know what, I really love comics, let me go back to it? Take me back to that Ramon. What was he thinking? Where did he get that audacity?
It was audacity. I was thinking that it's going to be so easy because I've been working in advertising for 20 years. I knew how to network. I knew how to project manage. I knew how to art direct. So I thought it was going to be easy for me, but I realized that the competition is fierce if you want to be a professional, if you want to work in the industry. And even when you do break in, there's always other levels that you still need to go through. But eventually I figured out that, none of that matters as long as I'm producing work that I enjoy. But that first year after I went back to it, I thought it was going to be so easy that I was going to just, blow people away. And that wasn't the case. It was a good learning experience for me to, I think I'm pretty good, but there's always other people out there who are better, but that's okay. Doesn't matter anymore, as long as I'm doing what I enjoy doing. So.
Yeah. Well, you took that leap, which I think is fantastic, because sometimes we have these like lifelong dreams, or we have these projects that we want to birth, and we hold ourselves back But you took that leap and you tried, and you're like, you know what? It was really hard. And oftentimes when it's really hard is when we learn the most. And so you got back to that place of, I just want to enjoy myself. And I have to remember that. So I'm hearing that as a common theme. So I'm definitely going to soak that in about play and enjoy yourself and community.
I have to give props to my wife, Glenda,
Mm.
because we've always taken turns, sort of like taking chances with our careers, you know, and in this particular case, she still runs, you know, for the last couple of years now. She's been running her daycares out of Brooklyn, and I've been helping her. And really, that I'm not sure if I could have taken as many chances, or I would have felt as comfortable taking as many chances with my career had we not had one of us being stable as far as income and career. So that helps a lot also.
Yeah.
And that matters more when you have a lot of responsibilities. If you're younger and you have no responsibilities, then you're free to do it. But you know, like I said, I'm in my 50s, and so I had to think about these things as well.
I am so thankful that you actually brought that up, because that's just real life. You know, some of us want to make these leaps, but there are also other people who we need to consider. And this idea around support, I always like to think of it as like, who is my success squad? Who is my support so that I can do this? And you named your wife. And then this idea around taking turns. So is there anybody else who's part of this success squad in your life?
Well, my kids always came with me to the Comic Cons, and a lot of different friends as well. So
yeah. So folks, build your support team, your success squad.
A lot of extended family. The first time I ever kickstarted a comic book project, a lot of my extended family was right there helping pledge and things like that.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so how can our listeners connect with you?
They can just go to ramongil.com or just do a Google search for Ramon, Ramon Gil. You say it right, actually. You say Hill. So
that's how you pronounce it.
Ramon
Right?
Gil,
Yeah.
Gil. If you do a Google search, and the first one that comes up is just me and this neurologist. So it's not the neurologist.
It's the artist.
Yeah,
don't go to the neurologist.
Actually, says artist, writer, and educator. So
wonderful. So Ramon, what's in store for you? What are some of your future offerings or projects that are coming up?
Well, let's see. Diversity Comic Con 4 is coming up in October 16th and 17th. And I recently announced, this is the third time I'm announcing this, and I have to do it, but I'm organizing a comic arts, symposium for February 2022. And what it is, I'm inviting a bunch of the comic book schools to come together and put together presentations. And anybody who wants to a full day of just learning about comic books can attend.
Perfect. For those of you interested, definitely reach out. This is your opportunity to be in community and be in that space. So last question. So back to the theme of this interview series. What does being a creator mean to you, Ramon?
What does being a creator mean to me? It means looking for new ways to do things. It means following, I guess, letting your heart speak. You know, letting if there's something that you need to say, a message or some kind of theme that you just need to put out there. And I think putting it out there, the process of putting out there, is being creative.
Put things out there that are coming from your heart. I love it. I love it. So closing thought, we're going to do a card pull. So you tell me, I'm just going to put my hand like this, and then you literally tell me when to stop, and that'll be our closing thought for this interview.
Okay. Now,
okay. So the card is I am grateful, and let's see what it says. I realize that what is right about my life outnumbers what I perceive to be wrong about my life. I choose to focus on what makes me feel good, and I am grateful. So this is our closing thought, folks. So feel good, feel joy, feel community, play. This is what I'm getting from this. And I wanted to thank Ramon for this opportunity to talk with such a creative soul and all his wonderful insights about just going out there, doing things from the heart, feeling empowered to do it, and also at the same time doing it in community. So thank you, Ramon.
Thank
Tune
you.
in, folks. We have one more interview as we close out the series. So thank you again, Ramon. Take good care, everyone. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation and you'd like to help support this interview series, make sure to tune in to the next episode and share it with others. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram at The Radiant You, U as in the letter U, and sign up for my newsletter by visiting www.theradiantu.com. Again, that's theradiantu.com. Thanks, everyone, and remember, dream big, dream bold, and take brave steps. I'll see you next time.